Hey guys, welcome to some Orna today. Today, I'm gonna be going over how to do a endless dungeon in tier 10 for heretic maji. So, first off, let's go over the build. So, we have two different main builds that we'll be using. We have our endless setup, which both builds are basically the same gear-wise. They're actually the same for me right now because I'm upgrading my Arisen Witch's Staff. And I don't have any poly boots yet for Mage. So, for setup, we're going to be going Golem's Fortitude, Barrier 2, Wyvern Speed 2, and then warding up to about 200. Switching pets, going back in, and let's get a little bit of a start. So, first off, we want to go Golem's Fortitude, fake cactus, Barrier 2. I should probably just kill this so it doesn't kill me. Does have a fairly high attack. Then Wyvern Speed, and we want Kerberos to use Water Alignment because it makes us immune to water and gives us a 50% bonus to our attacks on top of our bonus from our faction. So I'm Fire Faction, so I'm using Frostfire, and we want the attack up 2 from that. Now we go into Divine Bastion 2, which is learned from Titan Guard, but you can also use normal Divine Bastion. Works just as well, just doesn't give you as many turns or as much recovery for later on. So we're gonna go into Ward of Valor, which you can use Anwin or Balor. They're essentially the same. From the Thief line, you learn Anwin from Arcanic, Balor from Nyx, and both Golem's and Jin's Talent and Golem's Fortitude are from Druid. Wyvern Speed 2 is from Dragon Knight. So, we want to get both Holy and that early on. Shoot. We want to get both Holy and Dark defense from this. So it worked there, gave us water defense. So hopefully, yep, Kerberos used ice alignment, so now we have our water aligned. We can leave and go grab our second pet that we use, which is Orichalcum Golem, to build up our ward turns, and then we will return back to him when we actually go through the floors. Still using our setup. Just continuing to build ward. Earth defense. There's our dark defense. Now we just need one more time of it working and it giving us holy defense to be able to switch off and start using Ward of Ortonite, which is gained from the Arcanist, not Arcanic, in tier 10. And later on, we also have Fortify 3, which is learned from Majestic early on. So if you'd rather use that and try to save some mana. But right now, it costs only 50, and we want to try to burn some of it off, even though we will be using a Panacea because we are using smelly shrooms for Berserk 3. I like to build around 300, 320 ward turns just to be safe, have that extra buffer. We also bring Wisp Peel 2, which is learned from Archdruid in, I believe, tier 8, so that we can get rid of the effects of poison and a few others. It does not remove toxic or blight. Our blight did run off, which is really nice. Now that we have all of our defenses up, we are weak to lightning too because of the water alignment, but because of heretic's specialty, it grants 1 immunity at random, so we have a chance of having 2 immunities overall when we go through. As long as it doesn't give us water immunity, we'll have 2. I'm mostly ignoring what Fallen Necromancer's casting, because we're building up our ward and recovering any damage he does by using Ward of Fortunate. Now, if you have something like a Fallen Leviathan, you can just use the Fortify 3, but because we are up against something that is doing damage to us, I do like to try to stay as close to max ward as possible throughout this. I don't suggest doing this against something like a Fallen Tyrannus, which has mostly lightning attacks that are more often than not you are weak to because of the water alignment. So I suggest just killing it, getting a new one. The other ones that you probably shouldn't do this against are Chimera, Arisen, Arachne, Odin, or Arisen Carmen, because they can give Toxic. And to cure Toxic, you have to use a Panacea. And then also not against Cockatrice, Greater Cockatrice, and Odak Golem, because they can give Petrify. Alright, now that we're up to 324 ward turns, we are going to go and switch out Orichalcum Golem for our last pet that we use, which is Chimera, mainly just to get Zerk 1. If you don't have Chimera, you can always go back and use the tier 5 spec of Berserker, which gives Berserk and Berserk 2, but in most cases you will not use Berserk 2 because it gives only a 25% stat increase, but a 999 dot. But if you don't have the smelly shrooms, you can use Raider for that Berserk 3, which gives 50% and the same dot as Berserk 2. Alright, now we're going to pop our smelly shroom. We do get Toxic from this as well, so we'll have to use a Panacea. We're going to use Jin's Talent as well, which gives us double defense and resistance down, which is the other reason we want to use our Panacea to get rid of that. peel for that. Then I also do like using an eggnog, just either in case you didn't get the dex and didn't keep trying. So we use the crit to go with Faith Flame 5, which I use just to help with Fallen Ithra. And because we don't need to worry about mana right now, I just am going to burn off some small mana potions until Chimera decides to cast Berserk. Sometimes it will be turn 1, sometimes it will take a few. So as soon as you get Berserk, exit out, go into grab Orichalcum Golem again. Go in, and now we're going to go switch to our attack setup, which again is the same gear. I use an old Northern Crown, Yeti coat, and currently Arisen shoes until I get some poly boots. And then I'm using 2 Band of Gods for the Orns. Then we have our Omnimancy spells. Frostfire 2 because we get both the bonus from it being water and fire because I'm in the Knights of Inferno. Heat Lightning 2 for anything that's immune or resistant to water. Ice Storm and Iced Earth as the final round off in case Frostfire won't do the damage. Transference 3 to recover some more while doing damage. Drain 2 in case you need just that health while doing the damage. Scorched Earth 2 yet again just in case they're immune to both water and lightning. Multi-Spark 3 for Arisen Hydras, which are not too much of a threat because we do have our water immunity. Wispiel 2 to get rid of the toxic and that stuff. Divine Bastion, that should be 2. To recover ward if we have a opening. Ward of Ornite to get more turns. Outwill to decrease the resistance. Sleep Dart can put some of the enemies to sleep. Stun Dart for ones that are immune to sleep but can be stunned, which most of the tier 10 bosses cannot, but the Dark Pegasus can be stunned, cannot be slept, and does have very high dex. Mute to reduce magic. Lucis Naturity 2 for mimics. Arcanus 2 for Battle Gateways. Quakestorm 2 just to round off that final part of if they're immune or resistant to fire and water. Faith Flame 5 for the Ithras, and Multifrost to help us get down into our bonus range. So I'm gonna open up with Multifrost 2 and pretty much use it till I'm around 500 mana. And you will get some that have Last Stand, and it can proc multiple times in a row. So just be conscious of that and know what does most Immortals do, and so does a few of the Fallens. So we're very low on health right now, so I'm going to use Drain 2 just to get a little bit back and go back to Multifrost. And Heretic does have a built-in healing with the Health Siphon, so you will heal 1/10 of the damage you do back every once in a while. So, like right there, I just gained 4,000 off of 40,000 attack. And we'll keep lowering our mana until we hit the nice, good range of 500. And once we hit that, we'll stay below 500 unless we get toxic applied to us. Nice crit on Fey Flame. Some enemies to watch out for are the Immortals, because they have a very high dex along with a chance to use Last Chance. Couldn't think of the name of it for a second. Alright, we're under 500 now, so we'll switch over to Frostfire. And we are getting over 100,000 right now. I forgot to... So right now I'm going to go quickly put on my buffs, which I use Dowsing Rod, EXP Potion, Lucky Coin, and Lucky Silver Coin. And then when we have a Triple Temple up, I'll also throw in a Vulcan's Brew. And back to grinding. So because Fallen Ifrit is immune to fire, we're going to use Ice Storm here, taking him out nice and easily. And then Northern Lord is resistant to water attacks, so we use our Heat Lightning, and then just keep cycling through based on weaknesses and resistances. So Anku is resistant to all of them, all the basic 4 at least, and Kelpie is resistant to water and fire, or immune to water and fire, so I'm going to use Drain to also gain some of that health back. He can put you to sleep, so be careful of that. So now that we're at 0 mana, we're going to go and use Greater Mana Potion to gain that 500 mana back, and continue to just use Frostfire. So there was an Anubis. He is one of the 3 tier 10 mobs that the higher you go on the floors, the harder it is to deal with him, because of his very large health pool. Getting him early on isn't too bad as long as you're below that 500 mana. You can usually one-shot him if you have a similar build. So we have a Fallen Leviathan now, Heat Lightning, and back to Frostfire. And here's the Immortal Lord, which doesn't have too bad decks early on still, but can use Last Chance to get a second stand and stay at 1 health instead of dying, which can be very hard. So if that does happen, just use a Stun Dart and finish him off. The early floors will go very fast, so if you have a chance, you can use kind of whatever spell that they are not either resistant or immune to, and keep rolling up until you hit where you struggle. And if you're using Arisen Witch's Staff, which is the mage version of the Venom, which is a experience booster, you should probably switch to your highest attacking weapon at that point, and depending on how many totems and what you have on, possibly switch to a Band of Gods or a lower quality tome. And there was Hades. He is the least threatening of the 3 tier 10 bosses, and I forgot he was resistant to fire for a second. So he usually goes out in 1 or 2 hits depending on the floor, and depending on where you get in floors, the more boss gauntlets it's equivalent to. So you reach the same experience as 1 boss gauntlet at floor 44, and then it's less and less floors from there on out. I'll put a little thing up here for you guys to see what floors you are able to do what at. So mimicking is resistant to pretty much everything except for just straight up magic damage, so I'm going to use transference just to get him out quickly. And on later floors, you will want to use what spell is strong against them. So if I had a I forget what his name is. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank. Oh, Thor, you'll want to use your Iced Earth because it will give you double damage against him. So for Valor Gateway, we bring Arcanus just for that bonus damage. It can be a little of a pain to deal with because of the wide range of skills of all 4 types and then Nightmare, which is a dark type. You can also get summoning scrolls from them, which can be very useful. Ice Storm on Typhon because he's resistant to fire. Also, if you are using something other than one of the Ithra's staffs, I suggest, if you can, to put the water element on it to give it a chance to freeze on any attack. So here's a Fallen Thor. We got the bonus because we used Iced Earth. Floors 1 through 100 go fairly fast. Most things you one-shot, or at most 2-shot if you get an early Zerk. And once you get past floor 100, up until about floor 120, if you don't get any Zerks, you're gonna be able to keep your rhythm going and just keep smashing everything. So we got an Arisen Hydra, which is weak to lightning, so we use our multi-spark. The reason we're not using our Ice Storm is because it is... Oh wait, is it not? Oh, we could use Ice Storm. So we could use Ice Storm on that because it's not immune or resistant to water, apparently. I think I just forgot that because I've been used to using multi-spark against it. You also want to be careful against Fake Cactus, especially when you get into the higher floors, because it has a very strong Arrow Storm too that can do a decent amount of damage. And when you have a chance, you can use Transference 3 just to gain some of your ward back. And then keep rolling on. So we got a Zerk Necromancer. Just Frostfire 2 a couple times. Kills it. then back on our way to going through. So Kraken isn't resistant to water. It's weak to holy and resistant to dark, or immune to dark. But a lot of the higher tier mobs will have a lot more status immunities. Like all of the tier 10 mobs have immunities to pretty much everything and can't be frozen or stunned to try to deal with them without having as much risk. Another crit for 160k. And some of the Zerks really don't have to worry about. So floor 104 grad just takes a couple hits. If you get him above floor 120, just try to use the biggest attack you can. So Mighty Mimic is immune to most things except for Dragon. So we use Luthis Natura to deal some damage. You can do some damage with your Frostfire, but not as much, and he is resistant to that. So another King Grad, just gonna tech up a couple times, try to get it down as fast as you can. So we're bleeding, I'm gonna just use Wisp Heal to get rid of that. Doesn't get rid of bleeding. It's one of the ones that doesn't, I forgot. When you have an extra dot on top of the already 1500 that you're taking from Zerk 1 and 3, it can get a little out of hand to try and balance your health in that. So if you need to use a cure-all, I've not been able to restock yet, so I'm running very low. Zerk Valor King, just a couple hits. Mighty Griffin, didn't need to gain my mana back. Luckily it's on a safe mob. And back to beating everything to bloody pulp. So Zerk Risen Behemoth does have a little bit of health, but not too much. It is the tier 10 Arisens that can get very high health, like the Arisen Hydra and the Arisen Finfolk, which is why we do take that water immunity, because their main attacks are water. So here's the Arisen Arachne. He can cause toxic and poison and blight. So we want to just try to get rid of him as soon as possible. Don't worry about trying to get your ward back on that turn if you are lower. Just try to take him out right away. So Fallen Vulcan, immune to fire, so we use a different ice spell. Odak Goblin can petrify you if you do not have the mana or do not one-shot. So just be careful around that. Might have to use a Panacea to get rid of it if it gets too bad, or if you get a Zerg one. Fallen Tyrannus, might have to use... nope. If you can't hit anything for a couple turns, try using Stun Dart or Sleep Dart. And it should be able to deal a fair bit more damage. Alright, Zerko Golem, so I did not, so he did use Petrify, but it did not proc, thankfully, and he is frozen, so even if I were to miss that, I should be fine. Chimera, one shot. Thankfully, so that we don't have a chance to get that toxic, which can be very nasty, especially when you are having to use a panacea to get rid of it, and then having to try to get your mana back down. To get your mana back down fast, you can leave, switch classes, re-enter, and then go back to heretic. But that does take a little bit of extra time, and if you're using limited resources, it can waste them a bit. So right now we're at floor 140. That's got a Risen Slay, which can have a bit of health, but isn't too much of a threat. So Mortal Lord, I'm gonna try hitting it, miss. Now I have to gain my mana back real quick. And Stun Dart. Went down in one shot. Another one, just gonna Stun Dart right away. And it did get its second chance. So, just gonna attack again. And because Weaver is a safer mob, I'm gonna use Divine Bastion too, just to get my ward back. And continue back on beating everything up. So if you're on a safe mob and you know you're running out of mana and might not be able to fight something you have to hit a couple times, then you can use your greater mana potion to get that mana back before going into the next fight. And if you do get below 1600 health, use either a super health potion or X health to gain back either 2500 or 5000. Anubis also can lower your dex temporarily, which makes it harder to hit the high dex enemies. So right now I'm going to go use my Cure-All because I do have Poison and Blight. And I'm going to have to Panacea. Alright. So I probably should have used another Panacea there, but we got to floor 153 fairly easily, only struggling on the last floor. Heretic Maji can get you very far, but you have to know what is good against what, and that gained us about 2 billion experience. Thank you guys for watching. Have a good one.